We don't want to create these dependent, just kids who just put their hands out and wait. They sit and wait for everything to be provided. We want creators, initiators, people who are learning and building skills. So like, do not be dependent on the school system for your learning.
Smart Money Parenting.
Uh-oh, here we go.
This one's gonna be fun.
We're getting into it.
We should probably start this episode of Smart Money Parenting with a little bit of a warning and some whatever legalese we have to say.
We're not going to give specific. We never want to give like specific financial advice that you just run off and do without talking to someone. But today we're going to talk a little bit about some controversial opinions about
College.
What's going on with college?
How to prepare for it. 529s or no. Life insurance or no. Do you go to college or not? What are the stats on college? How do you want to think about college with your family? This is a tough one. And I have to say this because one of the biggest wins over the last 50 years in our society, I would say, is the amount of families that really value education.
Sure.
That's a win. The literacy rates, even though there's struggles in literacy right now, are higher. The education rates are higher than ever. That's an important thing. How kids learn, why they learn. This is a really important thing we have to say. But it's qualifying this. We're not giving you financial advice. We're not telling you to go run with this. What we want to do is spark a conversation, because the biggest thing you could do wrong is not think through these things before your kids just go off to school. We don't believe that every person in America should go get a $100,000 student loan and go get any degree and then just go try to get a job afterwards.
The average tuition at a private college, about $40,000.
Okay.
I mean, this is per year.
Per year.
That's per year.
$160,000.
Plus housing, plus books, plus, I mean, we're dropping our daughter off at college this week. And I just think about, luckily she's playing basketball, so we don't have a big...
Your bills are lower.
Bills are lower. But I think about it like, what would I pay for college at some of these colleges that, they're asking $40,000 to $65,000 a year in tuition, plus all the other stuff. Like, is it worth it? You look at the student debt. Here's an interesting stat. The total amount of student debt, this is in 2021, exceeded $1.7 trillion.
Trillion.
That $1.7 trillion, 44 million borrowers. And yet only 55% of students who pursue a bachelor's degree actually complete it.
So now you're in debt, but you don't get the degree.
So you're borrowing a bunch of money and going to college and you don't finish.
Yep.
And you got a bunch of loans. You have no degree. Like, was that even worth it? Like, we talk about it all the time. We think education is really happening a lot online.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it is connecting, it's networking, and it's online learning. But is there value to pay $60,000 to sit in a lecture of someone flicking through a PowerPoint that they've had for 20 years?
All theoretical.
All theory.
All complex.
They have no business experience. They're just talking about this theory that they've studied and written about.
Those who can't teach. And if you can't even teach, you go into politics.
Oh, boy.
Sorry, that's a trigger warning. I'm kidding. I have relatives in politics. Sorry.
And teachers.
Sorry again. I'm married to one. I'm joking. Some of the teachers are the most amazing, selfless people in the world. But
think about
the younger teachers, the elementary teachers in middle school and high school, sometimes when you get into college, you've got to be careful. Is what we're saying is, like, we need to have the conversation. We went to college.
Yep.
You went to college. I went to college.
Yep.
I have a master's. You have your financial degrees.
Economics and finance.
Yeah.
Degrees, yeah.
And now you're, financial planner, wealth manager for some of the best names in the world. And so we've gone through the education. So we know, but it's one thing I have to say is education today is not necessarily the same as it was 15, 20 years ago.
Listen to this. According to a 2021 report of best colleges, that's like a survey group, 76% of students believe that online learning is actually better and more productive than, or at least equal to, on-campus learning. I thought that was interesting.
Wow.
Like, learning is going online. People are so comfortable with getting their how-tos from the internet, from YouTube, from
training.
Like go to all these sources that will teach you how to do things in the real world, rather than sitting necessarily for hours on end, expensive hours, and just hearing about theories
College is not the only answer to ensure a child's success.
There you go.
That's what we want to get.
That statement.
We want to get that across to you guys. You know, I mentor a lot of young guys in their early 20s, late teens, and some of them are in college. Some of them are not. You know, some of the ones in college are really struggling because their friends play video games until 2 a.m. and there's just drinking and partying, and they're just really struggling to get value from the material they're going through. They're trying to find something they love. The benefit of college is you learn how to follow through on projects, you learn how to be a good friend, and you can learn from some really smart people. You have to be very careful, though, about what those smart people are teaching your kids. You know, you don't want your kids to be indoctrinated. You want your kids to think for themselves. You want them to ask tough questions. You want them to see, what are the values of our family that you want to keep your kids and the future generations going through? And outsourcing that to anybody else is a bad idea. Outsourcing it to school is a bad idea. To sports is a bad idea. To colleges is a bad idea. Kids need to have the right view of college. Now, there's a lot of specific things like a law degree, you know, pre-med, certain finance things, you know, CPA degree. There's college requirements for a lot of these things that's not necessarily what we're talking about, but there's a lot of skills in the world that some of the kids I mentor, they did a gap year where they did apprenticeships all year and worked really hard learning very, very critical skills in IT and real estate and coding and AI and machine learning, marketing, sales. Like, these things are real world skills that companies like us, I've hired 1,000 people. I don't look at their degree. I look at what they've done.
Yeah, what their skills, what their experience, what their attitude, all that stuff.
Yeah, you hire for attitude, then you train the talent.
So my 16-year-old son is creating on his own a drop shipping business. And I came
from YouTube.
Yeah, from YouTube. He's just learning on YouTube how to set it all up. He's like, Dad, I got my Shopify account. I got all the stuff I'm connecting. I've got these products I'm buying. And I'm like, wow, all on his own. I didn't do anything for him. I want to help him, but he's done it all on his own so far. But I'm like, to me, that's evidence that you don't have to wait until college.
Yes.
To like have your learning and education done for you. I think too many of us have this track that's just like, get good grades in high school, get into the good college, get your good grades in college, and then magically
you'll get the job.
You'll get the job or the career
of your dreams.
Yeah. I don't think we should be teaching our kids like that. You need to teach them to look for opportunities and to build skills and experience before that, because it's not just going to come to you on a silver platter after your college graduation.
Yep.
And I think people are shocked by that. So some of these kids are just like, well, I'm going to go back and get a master's degree.
Right.
Like, I'm just going to go back to more school because
now I'm going to get my PhD and I'm going to go be a professor.
It wasn't on a silver platter, that job that I was promised. And now I have $200,000 in debt. Yep. So build the skills and get the experience before you even get to college. Like, you don't have to wait. All the good learning is not done in a classroom. Okay, you can learn a lot of cool stuff in a classroom, but that's not the only place, is what we're saying.
Yeah, all education needs to be based on the value it creates in the world. So think about your education that way. Does this serve me? Does this help me create a lot of value in the world around me? It's a very practical thing to think, what might I want to do? And will the student debt that I get into actually be able to pay for it? You know, one of the games we're building right now in one of our Engravy Stack, which is the world's first banking and investing app for kids and teens that plays like a game. So you're learning all these life skills through gaming with a bank account. One of the games we're building right now in level 7, which is the borrow level, is talking about the ROI of college. What about, do you want to go into debt X amount to get a degree that might get you a job that makes X amount, makes Y amount?
Right.
And then how many years it's going to take you to actually pay down that student loan?
It's expensive.
We're training kids on this because they're going to realize that, wow, if I get this degree for this job at this college, it's going to take me 18 years to pay it off if I'm steady and if I get the job that I want in that actual degree. Sometimes they can pay it off in a few years, right, if it's a smaller debt amount and it's a higher increased paying job. Sometimes you'll never pay it off. Like, if you're trying to get $150,000 in debt to go get a degree that's making you 50 to 70 grand max, you may never pay it off. And that is something you need to be very aware of, because that to me is financial handcuffs for the rest of your life.
It's true.
So we want you to be very eyes wide open going into this. Think about the value it's going to create. There are a lot of incredible training programs for STEM and engineering and coding and marketing and IT that are $5,000
And
$10,000.
all the trade schools, like
all the trade schools,
physical labor and skills that are so in demand. Like think about hiring a contractor right now. It's difficult. They're in high demand. They can charge whatever they want.
Yep.
The last few years, I think that's been the case. Someone who can do tenant improvements on a building or build an extension on a house. These people can demand what they want.
Yep.
And their skills are so valuable right now. They did not have to sit in a classroom for 4 years.
They're not in debt and they're making six figures.
That's right.
That's a difference between somebody who's 6 figures in debt making 5 figures.
Right.
And it's not just about money. However, being financially competent and financially free allows you to have freedom. It allows you to pursue the things you want to do with your time, pursue the things you want to do with your money, pursue the relationships you want to have, and pursue the purpose that you were put on this planet to do. That's the benefit of not being strapped in debt. And so we want to be very, eyes wide open going into this. We want to make sure you're having these conversations with your kids. And if a lot of parents that are listening to this are thinking, I am worried if my kid doesn't go to college to get a degree because of what that looks like for me.
Or doesn't go even to the right college.
Right. Or they go to the wrong college. What does it look like for me?
Right.
And what we really want to tell you is you've got to be really careful of that identity.
Well, college isn't the end all be all.
Nope.
And you can learn skills no matter where you go to college.
If you go to college.
If you go to college or no matter where you go. It is an opportunity that if you approach it the right way, it can be extremely beneficial and valuable.
Will college help your kids mature? Will college help your kids create a lot more value in the world or not? That's a really important thing to really ask yourselves. Now, let's talk about prep for college for a second. One of the things that's important to understand is a lot of my friends that are they've kind of broken this identity structure of saying, my kids have to get the degree from the Ivy League so that I look good. Break yourself of that early. We want to make sure you do that. But also think you might want to make sure your kids are ready for college, whether they go or not.
Right.
One of the things we were always raised on was whether you go to college or not, you sure as heck better be ready for it, as in getting the good grades, getting high scores on the SATs and ACTs.
So you're saying give yourself an opportunity.
Opportunity.
Yeah.
Give yourself the opportunity to go to college. Prepare yourself to be somebody who would easily be accepted in college. That's how you want to raise your kids. Now, when they start to get into 16, 17, 18 years old, then you need to have these conversations of, is this the right move? Is this college or this college the right move? Is this trade school or is this program the right thing? Is a gap year the right thing? But in a gap year, by the way, a good gap year is not vacation. A good gap year is
traveling around Europe for a year?
Yeah, no, that is not a gap year. That's a wasted year. Unless you did that, I'm sorry, congratulations, you met some other cultures and had fun. A good gap year is spent building skills, apprenticeships, work, learning things, mission trips, giving. Those are great gap years to really help kids grow up, learn to be independent. If they're not learning financial competence during a gap year, it's not a gap year. So those are conversations you can have. And it is a kid by kid basis. You have to be prepared with the opportunity for college, but you can have those conversations as they mature to say, is this the right move or is this not the right move? I wouldn't say, yeah, you don't have to go to college if a kid's lazy.
No.
And if they're entitled and they're spoiled and they just want to use your money. That's not smart money parenting.
No.
But some kids are ready to rip out the gates and they don't do well in a classroom. And you know what? The skills that they've built, I use David Klinkhammer, one of the kids I've mentored for a decade. He didn't go to college. He did a gap year and he specialized in IT. And now he's making multiple six figures. He bought his first house. He's 21 and he just got promoted his third time in the second year. He's crushing it.
Superstar.
And he just closed a $60 million business for his company at 21. And by the way, he's working on his faith, his friendships, his character. He's reading a book a week. He does not have the mindset of somebody who went to college and said, I'm done reading. I'm done with education. I did that. I got the degree. He has this mindset of, I'm going to devour information that creates value in the world. That's the kind of kid I want to raise.
What you're saying is taking control of your education and learning.
Yes.
It's not being dependent. And this is a principle at Smart Money Parenting that we talk about all the time, is we don't want to create these dependent, just kids who just put their hands out and wait. They sit and wait for everything to be provided. They wait to be entertained. Like, that's not a Smart Money Parenting principle at all. We want creators, initiators, people who are learning and building skills. So like, do not be dependent on the school system for your learning. Take charge of your own path of what you're interested in and what you want to learn about. Like, kids being forced to learn about every single topic under the sun is probably not the best use of their time. Certainly you want a base foundation of things, but let's encourage and foster that like learning process by getting them interested in stuff that they like. So if they're into technology or they're into engineering, let's get them into that. Like, let's learn about that. If they're into marketing, communications, and that's their natural gift, then let's really put some time and energy and effort into that. Don't just sit around and wait for the track of college and just check the box and then, okay, where's the job? Like, I think that's really old school thinking that we got caught up in a lot. I think we're all guilty of that.
And the value and cost of college has far outpaced inflation.
Absolutely.
For the last several decades. The higher ed bubble is going to pop. And we have to be wary of that as consumers, because you are buying. You're the buyer. You're the customer. And so you have to think about this. Is the value of what my kids are going to do for 4 years, 2 years, 6 years, whatever it's going to be worth it? And there's other things people think about too. It is identity. We want to have a family of college goers.
Right.
Okay, fair to a point. What about, I want my kid to go meet their spouse. I want them to marry somebody that's a go-getter that's also in college. There's something to be said for that, potentially. But most people don't get married in college. They go out into the real world and then they end up finding somebody else. That's 80%. So you have to think about all these things together, and it is a family by family decision. Now, preparing for college, we got to talk about this for a minute, right?
Sure.
Like, let's talk about how we were brought through. So my family, I come from a smart money parenting family. They prepared for college for us. They did investments. They actually had investments in the stock market prepared for us for a long time, for 15 years of our life. They basically said, you don't get all of college paid for. You have to get the degree for it to get paid for, or else it's on you.
Interesting.
So you have to follow through. But they also said, here's the money that's been set aside. And they didn't tell me about it until I was like 16 and cared. They said, you're going to have to work on getting scholarships. It was not all of it. You got to get scholarships. You got to work. You got to pay your way. But guess what? If you cover the rest and there's a little bit left over, that's yours. So I had now this incentive that was like, okay, I'm going to work 4 jobs this summer. I was an RA. I was student body president. I did everything I could to get the scholarships to bring that bill down as much as humanly possible, so that at the end of college, I got lucky. I covered it all plus the net and had a couple grand left over.
That's awesome.
It was extremely powerful. And that's a great way to go. And they had the expectation that I was going to college my whole life, whether I did or not. I ended up learning 1,000 times more after college, but in a lot of ways, it did help set me up.
Right.
So you have to have this conversation. Now, if I would have gone through that today, with all of the other opportunities out there for me to learn and grow and build,
Might have been different.
Might have been very different. But
when you talk about paying for college, Scott, let me tell you what a client recently said. We talked to a client, and their kids are getting close to college age, and the wife said, we need to pay for all 4 years of college for all of our kids. And the husband was like, absolutely not. It's like, I paid for every penny of my college experience, and I'm so much better because of that. And she was like, that's such a parenting responsibility. From her standpoint, she said, you can't just throw them out into the world and then say, good luck. Some of our kids are going to totally fail, and they won't even be able to get an education, and they'll be forever behind their other siblings. And he's like, I didn't get a penny for college, and neither should our kids. And so what do you do when a couple has totally different philosophies, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, what is a compromise that we can talk about? Like, where can we each move a little bit to the middle? And by the end of the conversation, they both said, we're going to pay for 1 to 2 years of college, and the child will be responsible to pay for the rest of it. So if they want to finish in 3 years or 3.5 years, they're going to pay less. So they came to that compromise, but it was really interesting to see, because they had very strong feelings about what's a parent's responsibility for funding for college versus a kid's responsibility.
Yeah, that's good.
What do you think about that?
I remember a great story that Mark Tim told us. Mark Tim, 6 kids. He took them to the state fair. Said, everybody go find their favorite car at this huge like Toyota, or it was a Ford
great
lot.
Story. I remember this.
Some brought up pictures of trucks or some like Camaros or whatever it would be. And they put up on their wall. And he said, here's the deal. If college is on you and you can get it paid for, whether you're working, you create a business, or you get scholarships, then after your sophomore year, you get this car from me. And all 6 did it.
No way.
All 6
I didn't
made it.
realize all 6.
2 of them went in the military. 2 of them got the scholarships. The other 2 worked, paid it off. And he's like, we had no college payments, but these kids worked their butts off. And now they're value creators and they're killing it and they got their cars. In fact, half of them said, I don't even want the car. Give me the cash value of the car so I can invest it.
Yeah, interesting.
They wanted to keep their cheaper car. Smarter move.
Yes.
So there's a lot of ways to go about this, but I think the biggest thing is it's a kid by kid basis. Set them up for the opportunity to do it. Have the conversation about it. Plan for it as a parent. You know, we might have to do a whole nother episode on 529s versus
the financial side,
Roth IRAs versus drawing on life insurance versus just invest in them in a diversified portfolio their whole time growing up. There are drawbacks and benefits of all of them. We can probably do a follow-up, ask us questions about it. If you want to learn more, go to smartmoneyparenting.com, ask us a question about this. We'd love to talk about it on a future episode. But I think we can end this here.
Yeah, don't be dependent on the system for your learning and education. And there's more than one way to really build skills to be successful. So be open-minded, be intentional. These are the principles we always talk about on the Smart Money Parenting Show. So thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for liking, sharing, and following. And we'll catch you next time.
Thanks again. Bye.
It takes more than money if you want to succeed. You gotta know what to do with it. You gotta take the lead. You gotta give them confidence. You gotta make them smart. If your kids are gonna thrive, now's the time to start. Smart money parenting.